Oklahoma State basketball has had its ups and it's had its downs. Recruiting has definitely given us a reason to be excited. The recruiting continues to potentially look good. But with the new news of the N.I.L. that head coach Mike Boynton decided to throw out, I'm no expert. So let's talk about it with somebody who actually does know a little bit about this daggone thing around the turn here.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at AllDayOState. Mike Boynton broke the Oklahoma State internet yesterday with the N.I.L. conversations that he brought up. I'm no expert, like I said, but I might know a guy who happens to be a friend of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring on Doug Gottlieb, brother man. How you feeling? How you doing? I know it's kind of starting to get cold there.
Yeah, I'm in Oklahoma for the weekend. We have alumni weekend as the boys play BYU. And then I'm also calling the OU Kansas game down in Norman for Compass Media Network. So a little double dip. Got a chance to, I'm actually going into Joe's, see some of the 04 team. They're having some frosty beverages and chop it up and catch up.
Well, I greatly appreciate your time. We've been doing a little phone tagging today, but I'm glad that I got you here. So now that we are on this, Mike Boynton brought up the conversation that Oklahoma State's NIL collective for basketball needs to get considerably better. Is that a realistic possibility, or do you think that there's some other factors that may come up to play as well?
In terms of what?
The NIL collective for Oklahoma State University. What do you think that we need to do from a basketball perspective to get NIL where it needs to be?
We need more money. we need more money. And look, and I didn't love, I mean, Mike, just like full transparency. Most people know I'm consulting with the program. I come in about once a month. Mike and I talk often. I talk with less of the staff. I talk with some of the players, just give some thoughts. I have a slightly different way of looking sometimes at the sport, at the game, at a situation. And I use the years of knowledge that I have from covering it, from coaching it, from playing it, being around it. And, we don't always talk about big picture. Sometimes it's very little picture stuff. In this particular case, I don't like the way it landed. But I do think, like, if we're just going to talk NIL, I mean, Mike's right. The issue, look, we have issues, right? That should be our name of our podcast at Oklahoma State. We got issues, right? Now again, there's just a lot to unpack here, but the reality is that, Oklahoma State got killed, I think, in football last year at times and in basketball because we weren't up and running with our NIL, and some of it was perception, some of it was reality.
Right.
And you had guys that left in both sports because, and we lose people in baseball. We lost a great pitcher in softball. Yeah. It's not always NIL related, but right, very much is usually NIL related. And then in terms of the transfer portal, look, I can tell you with direct knowledge that there's more than just Mike even let on, because, one of the things I try and do for people I love and trust is, and it's not just Mike, but especially for Mike, because it's a program that I hold near and dear to my heart. If there's somebody that I know that I can help him with, I'm going to try to help him with. And right, I know there's a couple of players they felt like could really help and are starting and are on ranked teams elsewhere. And we just didn't have the money. And I look, I come from an old school family of recruiters. My dad was a recruiter in college basketball for 19 years. My brother was, still is, but for 26
So
years
your
on the men's
brother's
side.
still doing it.
Yeah, my brother's on the women's side. It's not as bad on the women's side, but there's still a little bit there. But I'll give you an example without naming names. There's a player who my brother had signed at Oregon State 5 years ago. And my brother and I are both very close to the family. And when he hit the portal, even before he hit the portal, I thought he was going to hit the portal. And I talked with his dad. I talked with him. My brother talked with his dad. My brother talked with him. And we both thought, hey, look, it's not just that I went to Oklahoma State and that I'm friends with people in the program. I just think this is a really good fit for you. And he did too. And it wasn't done, but it was close. And another school called and he said, hey, I'm pretty far down the road with one school. And they said, well, will $500,000 change your mind? It changed his mind.
Yeah.
And now he's starting in a different school. So, and I don't blame the players. I really don't, because I was never in a situation where, like you can make $500,000 to play a year of college basketball. And the kid's not a superstar. He's a really good player, starting caliber player, ranked team. But so like we're not teaching anything about there's no real loyalty. It's not necessarily about relationships. It can be when the numbers are about the same. It's not really about program momentum. I wish it was about the school or the style of play, but for most kids, it's about the bottom line. And where I thought, Mike, where I would, if I could just twist Mike's narrative a little bit, and I said, hey, why not just talk about Brandon Garrison and Eric Dailey and Javon Small and Keon Williams and, Connor Dow and Jamiron Keller. And why don't we just focus on, hey, we need to raise money to keep those players, because the way this thing really works, and he did mention it's about retention.
He did.
Look at Purdue. Purdue has one player from the portal. The rest are all signed with Purdue, play for Purdue. UCLA last year, even this year, the reason they're down is they're young, because like Oklahoma State, because they're not taking guys, but they're not taking guys from other programs. Can't win when you're young. It's really hard. And you got to retain your players, especially the ones that are going to do it the right way. And I wish that would have been kind of the focus, which is, hey, I love the young kids we got. We're going to add a piece or two here or there, but this is what we're going to build upon. In order to keep them, we have to retain them, and we have to be in the ballpark in NIL. But that wasn't the tack that he took. And I think he's a big boy. He can speak for himself. I don't think it landed the way he intended. But I also think, look, Mike's been at this job for 7 years. Okay. And I marvel at how he's handled the media for 7 years. So if you don't like how he handled it, fair, fine. You're completely allowed to. But I do think there's got to be some equity with all that he's said and done, how he's handled difficult situations for 7 years.
Yeah, you're not wrong, but at the same time, right, my biggest frustration is, what would this team look like with some of the seniors, right? What would this team look like with an Avery Anderson or a Caleb Boone or a Musa Cisse or even a Rondell Walker?
Be an NCAA tournament team.
Okay, but we don't have any of those players. They all left, right? So we don't have any seniors. We don't have any seniors
we don't have any
because
money.
of the guys who already left.
Look, one of those guys you have mentioned, okay, made very, 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 very little last year at Oklahoma State. And he walked in and said he wanted close to $500,000. And he ended up agreeing to a deal, which I think was just light of $300,000. And we weren't in that ball. First of all, when the 5 was thrown out, we're like, we're out. We don't have it. You go to 4, it's like, we're out. We don't have it. Now, eventually it could have gotten down to it. But again, the problem was, the problem is, do I think we should be better? Yeah. You lose all these close games, got to be better. no question. But I also think that Mike's point, which is a fair point, which is it doesn't actually matter if it's Mike, if it's whomever else coaching. If we want to be in the top half of the conference, we want to be in the top 3 of the conference. We got to be in the top 3 of the conference in as many different categories as possible. Okay, we can't just go like, "Hey, we're Oklahoma State, we're awesome."
That
right?
used to work.
No, it didn't.
Come
No, it
on.
didn't.
Come on.
Name me a player you like.
It worked a little bit. Tony Allen.
Okay, how'd we get Tony Allen?
Your guy.
How'd we get Tony Allen?
We had to pull him in from the transfer portal, basically, before the transfer portal ever existed.
No,
we had to go
Tony Allen was not. Tony Allen was not a transfer. Tony Allen was from junior college.
Right.
Okay, he went to 2 different junior colleges. Okay? And we got him through relationships with his junior college and the fact that we held on. We kept recruiting him when I think he flunked out of his first junior college. We could get him in. Okay, and the off course. And by the way, I told the story tonight. We nearly ran Tony Allen off. I was just in the media early on, 2004, right? So 2003 in August, 4th day of school, Thursday of school. What happens, Cody, first Thursday of school at Oklahoma State?
The first what?
Thursday of school.
I don't recall. Hit me.
You don't?
No.
Parties.
Oh,
parties.
Yeah.
Right? All the bars, out at the weed, and late at night at Whataburger, right? He got into a fight with some guys from Langston. And some of the coaches wanted to get rid of him because he was a guy with a ton of baggage. And
gotcha.
The fight was at 1 a.m. So the entire team ran at 1 a.m. for a week. And the other guys on the team wanted to get rid of him. True story. I mean, look, if we go back through the 2004 team, we wouldn't get them because of N.I.L. now, but Joey and Stevie Graham showed up at our door. Literally, Ted Owens, a former Kansas coach, took them school to school. And the only reason we got them, 2 reasons. One, Coach Sutton, at that point in his career, wasn't going out all the time in July recruiting. So he was there and he had a great relationship with Ted Owens. And then we offered a scholarship the second year to Joey. Remember, they had 1 scholarship first year, second year, 2 scholarships. Nobody else did that. So we got him. We got John Lucas because of the shooting at Baylor. We need a point guard late. So, none of this would happen in this day and age where you just get a guy because he's available late. It'd be a bidding war. It's like Naquan Tomlin. Naquan Tomlin's from New York. Mike Boynton, a lot of these guys knows him really well. Really well. He has 2 guys on the staff from New York. Right? But we got in the discussion, but we can't outbid Memphis. And Memphis is a terrible fit for him. He's not having a great year. This is an NCAA tournament team if you had Naquan Tomlin, as one of your big guys, small ball 5. Then you can bring Brandon Garrison off the bench, okay, or you can play him with Brandon Garrison and rebound the heck out of the basketball. How many games do we lose because of rebounding, because of toughness on the boards, because of missing layups? So it's not the only issue with the program. Okay,
no,
there has to be a lot of other issues. Okay, that need to be fixed. We need to get people in Gallagher-Iba. That needs to be a snake pit that no one can come in and win on. Right? Got to fill up Gallagher. We need energy.
That I can say used to be.
We need our defense to be more tenacious. We need to play with a little bit more urgency. Okay, but again, that's helped out when you have better players. It just is.
Yeah.
Okay? Style of play helps. Okay, but again, style of play has helped out when you have better players. So I'm not in denial that we've tricked away some games. I would say even Mike, and I read his article in the Oklahoman, he's got to coach better. That's fair. A lot of aspects have to be better about this program, but the smartest way to begin the process is start with raising the N.I.L. money, and then the rest of the stuff works. Okay, and this is not just an Oklahoma State story,
right?
You talk to coaches. I talk to coaches all the time. They'll all say they all want to build new facilities. Forget that. Put the money to N.I.L. Let me get you a great team, and then everybody will give the money for the facilities and for whatever else you want. We're working backwards in many ways in college athletics. And I think the issue with Oklahoma State, and it's a real one, is, look, most people who are OSU alums are very humble from humble beginnings, even the ones that are financially well-to-do. And they struggle with the idea of just paying guys to come to our school. Like, hey, we're loyal and true, but we don't have to buy that loyalty. Understood. The other issue we run into is we're trying to be great, not good, great at every sport. Baseball wants to compete. Josh wants every kid to be on essentially scholarship. That takes money, right?
Yeah.
Compete in women's basketball. We're trying to compete in softball. We're trying to compete. We are competing in tennis. Okay. We need to do it in soccer. But we don't have a medical school. So we don't produce doctors. We don't produce lawyers. We produce good, hardworking people, some of whom are very well to do. But our circle of people that you can go, hey, we need $100,000 from you. Like, those people are like, there's not that many of them out there. So we got to be creative. We got to be smart. But it's definitely going to be an issue, as this is the new world now. Until there's some sort of salary cap, this is what we're competing against. Bigger budgets.
So losing the close games and having some, deficiencies as far as the rebounding game are concerned. I have some questions there. It's a really good segue, but real quick, I got to let the fine people out here know that FanDuel is the bee's knees. And for you to capitalize on your money-making capabilities, make sure that you go download FanDuel today, because right now new customers get $150 back in bonus bets with any $5 winning bet. All you got to do, get rocking and rolling with FanDuel. I know that football season's over, but basketball season's here, so you might as well make some buckets and make some bucks at the same time. Get yourself squared away today, whether you're going to bet on overs, unders, player props, who's going to score next, who's going to win the whole daggone thing. Do that at FanDuel. By going there now, you can download with FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make sure you use the promo code LockedOn, all one word. Again, that is FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Go there now to get started making the money. All righty, Doug. So you were just talking about some potential players that if they were on this team, then it would drastically change things, right? Maybe make us a tournament team. So I have one question.
Yeah.
Where did Isaiah Miranda not fit into that equation? Was it just not the right fit? Was it just not exactly getting what he thought he was going to get when he got to Stillwater? Or just,
that wasn't it. I don't. I'll tell you what. I want to be fair, okay? Because this is one of those. I'm in a position where, even though I'm in media, I probably know too much. I'll just say this: I was a fan, and am a fan of Zay's talent, and I do think, on paper, what he can bring is one of the things that Oklahoma State needs. 7'1", fastest guy on the team, jumps to the moon, can shoot threes. But again, like, you have to keep a lot of things in mind here. One, you're just not going to win with young players. And though he had been in college for a year, he hadn't played.
Right.
And so there's a maturity factor there. And they struggled to just keep him on the court. He played 1 minute and then got some sort of hip contusion and he was out. It was just one of those, there was always something.
Okay.
And, it's like, it's one of those deals where I was here for a week, end of the year. And, Zay was just not really engaged in things, and they struggled to get him engaged in things. Like, look, he's a guy who they knew coming in that he had not stayed at the same school for more than a year. And this goes back all through high school, obviously to college, right? The schools pile up. And so he honestly probably should have stayed here and sucked it up and played very little or redshirted. I wanted to see him play 20 minutes, see what could happen, because he is capable of things that no one else is capable of. But in order to get that trust on the basketball floor, you gotta be available at practice. And he was just always hurt. He was sick.
Gotcha.
And then he was hurt.
Gotcha.
There's nothing nefarious. There's nothing there's no
Right.
criminal activity. There's not a bad human being. None of that stuff. They just couldn't get him out there. And, it's like, can you really reward playing a guy in a game? Right. And then when you haven't played a college game, you don't really know what to do. I mean, like if you remember the Tulsa game where he played, I'll never forget.
I do.
Okay. So I was driving back from Arizona to Orange County from a basketball tournament, and we stopped and we decided to watch the game, and then we're going to go. And he checks in, and I'm with my son who loves Zay. And because Zay's just a big kid at heart, and every little kid loves throwing an alley-oop to a 7'1" guy, right? And he's just got a good personality. So he gets ready to check in the game, and we're with a couple other kids on the team, and I was like, fellas, you're going to see something, however long this kid's in, something that no one else on the floor can do. One thing good and one thing bad. And if you remember, like he had a missed dunk and then he dove for the floor, got a tip dunk, and he blocked a shot. He like a little kid in a candy store. I think 2 years from now, Isaiah Miranda will be a stud player. But they couldn't get to year 2. They couldn't get through year 1, let alone get to year 2 or year 3. And I think he wanted to play professionally. So I think that's what he's doing now. I'm not really sure.
Gotcha. Well, you know what? I appreciate that answer. Okay. So but hit me with another one here. You see segment 2, I put same old. Mike Boynton has had one major deficiency all 7 years, and it's a deficiency Eddie Sutton would never allow.
What's that?
It's the charity stripe, buddy. Why are we so abysmal from the free throw line every year?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
You do know I was a terrible free throw shooter, right?
Okay. But
look,
I know Eddie.
Listen, Cody, I can send you all of the printouts that show how much they're working on free throws. Okay. Last week, they were the number 1 team in America on Shot Tracker. Shot Tracker's in over half the Division I college gyms. Right. Number 1 team in college basketball in 3-pointers attempted and free throws attempted in practice. It's not for lack of practice.
Okay, fair enough.
I wish I could. I mean, he's been trying to solve it. Now, missed layups, which is why they lost the OU game, as well as some free throws. That I think is I thought that, and they are working on them. They do work on odd angle layups and finishing over big guys. But I think some of that is, hey, look, if you have better players, they dunk all those, right? I mean, honestly, if you have better big guys, you have more big guys. Like right now, we kind of have 2 big guys, right? We have no Isaiah Miranda. You have somebody who can catch lobs. That's a higher percentage shot. But I do think that there's a percentage of it there where, like, you got to work on your finishing packages, and it's a program that has been deficient in some of those areas, and so it needs to improve. It's totally fair to say, hey, we can't miss layups. We're not good enough to miss layups. Free throws, I mean, like the numbers are, they're working on them.
Okay.
So I don't know. Again, I'm not the guy to ask because I was a terrible free throw shooter. And I would get to the point where I get so frustrated, I would sometimes stop working on them. I tried everything, but it's definitely a problem. He shoots pressure free throws in practice every day. Guys run if they miss. Like, he does all the same things that all the coaches do, just not going in. So I don't know what to tell you. I wish I had an answer for you, but the only answer is, like, that's what this team is. This team misses free throws, and they got to figure it out. I think the team.
Doug,
I'll be honest with you, Cody. Like, this is a real thing.
Yeah.
I think this team lacks confidence, and I do think, and Mike has said it as much. And you try and pump them up, but it's like, can you believe it before you've done it? And that comes from so much youth. And I don't believe they have a guy in this team that's played in the NCAA tournament. Like, Bryce was hurt at Kansas when they went to the NCAA tournament. So, it's hard to say, like, hey, this is what it's like, and this is what it'll feel like, and follow my lead. Who's going to lead them? So some of that is inexperience, some of that's youth. It's not for lack of hard work. And I would like to think that I could fix it. But I'm also realistic and say, one of the best ways to fix it is to work on it. And this team does, in fact, work on it.
Fair play. Okay, so it's not all bad. All right. We just kind of talked a little bit about
it. I mean, like, listen, I'm not going to say if I'm sunshine and go like, hey, these are results that anybody at Oklahoma State should think are acceptable. Okay, and especially losing close games. Okay, but it's one of the hardest things to teach to younger players is how do we win games? How do we close them out? Like I had Javon Small and I talked today for about 30 minutes, and it wasn't no coaches around. We just talked about it. Like, hey man, how are we gonna win? He's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, take me. We kind of talked about the Oklahoma game, and he had the ball a ton. And we're trying to figure out, like, okay, so what are you thinking? What are you attacking? What do you want to get to? And, one of the things that you learn, and part of it is I've learned as I've gotten older, but part of it is you learn the more you play. And as much as Javon had played 2 years of college basketball, it was really a year and a half. He was hurt 1 year at East Carolina, but they weren't playing in big games.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But he hasn't closed out games, right? Missed a layup against Southern Illinois. You win that game. We had the ball and a lead against Oklahoma. Like, you can kind of go through it. Like he'd be responsible for it. So, to me, it's hey, dude, who are you trying to attack? Right? They were trying to attack Godzi. That's the 5 guy. Right? But then Oklahoma took him out when small. So how do I get who I want? Like, find your sucker, find the guy you want to take. And then, dude, you're in charge of the offense. What sets do you want to run? What do you mean? I was like, you've played here for 20 games. Michael let you call your own number. Call it. Where do you want the ball? How do you want the ball? You know all the sets. I do too. Tell me what you want and have it in your back pocket. And then when you know what you want, call it. He's like, I can do that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Do it. Do it. And then you get to attack the guy that you want to attack. Now, they were doing strength on strength. They had him attacking, Jalen Moore and some of the other better defenders, whereas I would have gone after Javon McCullum, who's a smart player but a scorer, not a defensive player. That's the guy I would have attacked. So, and look, some of that comes from Mike and coaching and understanding, hey, they were switching at the end. We got to have some built-in plays, sets, and offensive style that can read switches and slip and have different sorts of ball movement and have a package in place based upon their personnel. We got to do all those things. So, like, all that stuff needs to get better. I'm not like in denial about it. You asked about N.I.L. I gave you the real deal with N.I.L.
Yeah. Well, no. So what I was saying is, like, it hasn't been all bad. We've seen the development of Brendan Garrison. We've seen times where Eric Dailey Jr. has been able to kind of take over and do some things that are a little bit abnormal. You just mentioned Javon Small. Dude, in the beginning of the season, I thought Javon Small was maybe going to be the catalyst that could, make us get a little bit of a run in the Big 12.
No question. I thought he was a little bit better than the end of game production we've seen.
And then, dude, I love Connor Dow. I love me some Connor Dow. But you mentioned confidence. Connor Dow looks like somebody who is still a little bit fearful to put up the shots.
Well, he hasn't made any. He got installed in the starting lineup. He hasn't made a shot. So, confidence comes from doing something and then seeing the ball go in a game. But again, like, all of this stuff is very normal for younger players. Really, really normal. And you have older guys to pick up the slack. And, the most experienced player is out for the year. There's not a ton of other experience, and there's no kind of quality experience outside of maybe John Michael Wright. And even John Mike, who, works really hard, can really shoot. Like, there's a reason that he was 1,000-point scorer at High Point. Like, that's a good level for him. This is a gigantic step up in level, and he's a good player. He's fine. But his role should be off the bench, come in, make some shots. And he's had to play, big starters minutes because some of the young guys aren't ready. And because, frankly, Bryce Thompson's hurt. So I don't know. I think it's a really it's going to be an interesting case study if Oklahoma State, we can get it back, because I do think that it is definitely something we can build back. I do think, as you pointed out, Brandon Garrison, somebody that you want to have. I like Keon Williams. I want to have him. I like Javon Small. I want to have him. I'd love to have Bryce Thompson. Bryce Thompson come back next year. Love to have him back. Let's see what happens with his shoulder in the rehab. I like Jamiron Keller, Connor Dow. I think Connor Dow, by the time he's in year 3, will be really solid, and by the time he's in year 4, maybe year 5, be red shirts a year or whatever. Like that dude's going to be a stud player. Like good, really solid. Not like a superstar, or whatever. And then you got to keep those guys. And then you got to go out and add a piece or two in the portal. And my guess is this will be the most active portal that we've had, because last year there was a lot of questions about 2-time transfers, and the court ruling basically means they can kind of transfer as much as they want. So I'd guess that there'll be 15, 16, 1,700 kids in the portal. It's going to be crazy this year.
So before I let you skedaddle on off of here, I do want to let you go and get linked up with the Final Four squad. Okay, but real quick, we talked a little bit about N.I.L, and we talked a little bit about just kind of building the roster. Do you think that there could be a time where you can merge the gap between guys that just want to be here because it's Oklahoma State and the N.I.L?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I think. Look, I'm a believer in Oklahoma State. I mean, it's one of the things that why I want to be around the program is because if you want to say drink the Kool-Aid or whatever, like I know what this place can be like and what it can do for you if you achieve athletic success. Okay, life-changing experience. It's awesome. So the two work hand in hand. We need to bridge the gap with NIL. We need to keep our players, because the more we have guys, the more fans get to know them, the more they cheer for them, the better we are, the more fans you get. Okay. And, like I think there's absolutely got to be a build there. Can you get guys to take the hometown discount is what you're saying? Yeah. Because what I think you can ultimately create once you have some success is get back to the following that we had. You get back to the following that we had, you'll be able to get traditional old school NIL sorts of deals, whether it's Devon Energy, whether it's Eskimo Joe's, Dupree's, Chris's University Spirit, Sonic, all the things. But we got to make Oklahoma State cool again. We got to make it happen again. We got to make Gallagher. And it's been far too long. And so these two things go hand in hand. So look, again, Cody, I know that we had to talk the NIL stuff, and I've been honest with Mike. I didn't like the way it landed. And if I'm totally honest with Oklahoma State people that are mad at him, there's a lot of truth, if not all. Really, everything he said was true. I didn't like. There was a couple parts in there that I definitely wouldn't have said, and I think they could have just tweaked the wording of it. But I would also say, on the other hand, okay, if we're going to criticize him fairly so for the way in which that came across, can we also at least give the dude a little bit of credit for 6.5 years of handling the media with perfection, right? And I understand it's a very adverse time. Everyone knows the pressure that he's under, and I'm sure that kind of played into part of it, right? Like, it's reasonable. He's got a family. It's not fun when you're losing. He's putting everything he can into this thing, and they're not winning as much as they should. They're brilliant, not winning, not closing games they can win. Got it. But I also know that this is the same thing that Mick Cronin said. Mick Cronin went in front of everybody and said, like, hey, we got to get money. Now, look, UCLA should have deep, but they don't. What do you think happened at Michigan? What do you think's happening at a lot of, these coaches didn't forget how to coach.
Right.
They're going to a gunfight with a knife. And I actually think we got some guns that can be developed. Right.
Right. Oh, so, absolutely.
Totally with you on, there's a lot of other stuff to clean up. It is not the only issue within the basketball program, but it does. A lot of those issues get minimized if you can add 2 or 3 dudes that have played elsewhere, that you don't have to reteach how to play in a big game, that can make shots. That allows you to get your momentum going. That'll fill up the arena more, which will generate more money, which will generate more NIL, which will help get it. So it all kind of does work together. It really does.
You know my stance, man. To me, it's less about Boynton and more about what's happening to Gallagher-Iba Arena. When you turn on a game and you see like 3,100 people in that building, like I get physically sick, man. That's so my frustration necessarily isn't with whatever the product is right now with Mike Boynton. It's the lack of people in Gallagher-Iba and the fact that kids, right? Kids that are going to college right now have no clue what that building actually is,
Right,
and what
right.
and the feeling it gives you.
So I agree. And the other thing that it does is not just about feelings. The reality is, if that place is full, or even just the lower bowl is full, right? If you're getting 8 or 9 a night, okay, you're winning 95% of your home games. Every one of those games that were close, they lost. Okay, you're winning 95% of those games. And it's, if you win 95% of your home games, you steal a couple road games, you get the NCAA tournament. That's how it works, right? So how do we get there? Right? I have some thoughts. I'm sure Mike has some thoughts. I'm sure you have some thoughts. Winning is a great elixir, right? And you can cut some steps if you spend more money in NIL. And you don't have to outbid everybody. You just got to get to the right level.
Right.
And I think that's really what Mike is saying, is that, like, look, the money that we have is good. It's fine. Like at a lot of other conferences, a lot of other levels, that's going to work. Okay. The Big 12 is big boy basketball. Big boy basketball.
Man.
Okay.
Goodness
Every team's got a coach. Every team's got money. Like, you wouldn't believe the money that was spent at West Virginia. You wouldn't believe the money that's spent at TCU. You wouldn't believe that money. So I personally don't think we need to get to top of the market in order to put out a great product, in order to fill up the arena. Okay? Right. And I want guys that want to play in the orange and black. Like, that's what I want. I want guys that understand, that get it. Okay. But we got a ways before we got to get there. And I do think that it's a bit of a wake-up call. Like, look, I mean, you think Nick Saban left college football just because he wanted to work at ESPN? Like, no, it's a hard and challenging deal. Nick Saban had the exact same rant, didn't he?
Yeah.
Remember, he talked about, hey, we go through it. Now, again, the difference is, and I understand, you watch this podcast, you're like, hey, dummy, Nick Saban's won multiple national championships. Mick Cronin went to a Final Four. Like, you're right. You're right. And that's where I'm like, okay, there are other things that we need to get better. But there's no salary cap, and we are at the low end of our league. So my thing is this, and this is what I've learned in covering basketball and in interviewing for jobs and whatever, and talking to people about college basketball jobs. If you want to be in the top 3 in your league, you got to be in the top 3 in your league in facilities, in fan support, in NIL, in academics, in skill development. You got to be in the top 3 in more things than just, hey, we used to be awesome. So we got to figure out how to crack that code. If you can crack that code and get into the top 3 in multiple things, you're going to win basketball games. You win basketball games, you get Philip Gallagher. You Philip Gallagher, you're going to be in the top 3 because no one's going to win in that place. So that's really kind of what it comes down to.
I dig it, man. I greatly appreciate it. I appreciate your time. I know you got to run in there and get some elixirs in you. All right. So since we just talked about it and relive the glory days. So have one for me too, bud.
You got it. Enjoy snowy Colorado. Let's catch up soon. All right, brother?
Absolutely. Will do. Thank you very much for your time, Doug. I greatly appreciate it. Keep doing your thing, man. Keep doing your thing. So there we got Mr. Doug Gottlieb. And you guys know there's a level of frustration, of course. And there's a multitude of ways we could potentially get over the next hurdle. NIL is important. And everything else that revolves around the fan support needs to come with it. we need to make sure that we're experiencing Gallagher-Iba, regardless of what the team is doing, right? They need support. All righty, y'all. That's all we're going to have for this one right here. You know I love you. It was an honor, again, to have Mr. Doug Gottlieb on the show. We'll have him on again. Hey, it'll be fun. I'm glad that he was able to break some things down for us. All righty, y'all. As always, God bless. Go Pokes, and thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms. Make sure you go leave a review, hit the stars. Until next time, you know the drill. Later, taters.